Dr. Kevin McHale from Cape Regional Health System and Penn Orthopedics, the best of both worlds for a healthier life, to join us to break down these injuries. For an appointment, call 609-463-CAPE or visit caperegional.com/orthopedics. The Eagles getting healthier, Doc, as the season gets to the postseason. Who would have thought we would be talking about postseason football the last time we spoke?
Yeah, if you asked me a few weeks ago, I would have absolutely not have been thinking that we'd be talking about the Eagles in the postseason.
No
maybe
way.
Some other teams, but we're here and it's exciting, and we got some good playoff football to watch. So it's all good stuff.
All right, and the Eagles pretty healthy as they can be, though. There's a lot of guys who missed the whole season. They're out. But let's start with Nick Foles, forced to leave last week, aggravating his rib injury. Tests revealed he was only dealing with bruised ribs. Now, he says he's still sore, and, a lot of times we've talked about ribs, cracked ribs, broken ribs, but the bruised ribs, to me, my big question is he like a hit away from kind of being out again? Is this something that is kind of like a bruised rib area where this is a tricky spot in terms of throwing the ball or taking another hit? Could this be a spot where Foles is in danger? You're always in danger. You're always one hit away. But could he re-aggravate to the point where there's so much discomfort that he might get knocked out of a game?
So I would first of all agree with you that obviously you're always one hit away from getting knocked out of a game. But, I think, number one, he was lucky that you took a few direct shots to his ribs and didn't break it, first of all, because you already took a couple tough shots. And it is possible that if he takes another direct hit, a high-energy collision, that he could fracture it. But I don't think that, this rib bruise puts him at a specific, increased risk of fracturing it, more so than just having the discomfort in and of itself from the bruise. Just a bruised rib doesn't necessarily mean it's weakened. If it was fractured, obviously, then that weakens that area and actually puts adjacent ribs at risk of fracture because that rib's not providing that support for the ones that are next to it. So without the fracture, it's actually a pretty stable injury and shouldn't put him at risk for further injury. Now, it's uncomfortable, though, and these bruised ribs can be almost as uncomfortable as a fractured one, not as painful as a broken one. But the reason why I don't think it's really going to affect him much is there's a lot they can do to help keep his pain controlled. With these types of injuries, particularly the bruised ribs, when they're not cracked, there's no concerns about stability. You can numb up the nerve roots that are or the nerves that travel right next to the ribs to give him some good pain control. If necessary, that's something you can definitely do in the playoffs to keep him comfortable, give him an extra pad to give him a little extra protection. And I don't think it should affect him much at all this weekend.
Well, that's good news because I was a little concerned, thinking, he's saying he's sore and just all right, is he going to have full range of motion to kind of air it out down the field?
When these athletes are playing through pain, it definitely affects their performance. And a lot of times they're able to play through it and they tough it out and you have a lot of adrenaline, especially in these playoff matchups where you're able to just kind of work right through these injuries with, almost forgetting that they're there. That being said, I do think that he'd be able to get his pain well controlled, and I really don't think it should affect him all that much. Definitely less so than if he had, either a fracture or multiple cracked ribs, which would play a much more role in really limiting him.
Dr. Kevin McHale looking at some injuries. Mike Wallace is hoping to return after sitting out the past 14 games, broken fibula. So when we saw him get hurt way back in September, many people said, wrote him off, but they never put him on IR. They've been waiting. Now, doesn't look like he's going to play this week, but is it surprising, and would you imagine that he should be about ready to go and be able to contribute?
Well, I think he's definitely, a little ahead of schedule. When we think about fracture dislocations of an ankle, which is a little bit more than what it sounds like he had, a lot of times the players aren't even running until about 4 months, and then you really aren't getting back till 6 months, and they are season-ending injuries. Now, from the reports way back when he injured his ankle back in September, it said there was a clean break, which we assume meant that there wasn't a lot of other ligament damage, and they were able to fix it, and there were some reports that it was healed as of 3 months post-operatively, which is great. And he's back to running, and he just has to get up to game speed now. Now, this time of year, all these timelines kind of get thrown out the window. And we talk about T.O., he was out there at 6 weeks post-operatively playing in the Super Bowl because sometimes the stakes are just so high that although there's an added risk of injury and it's not necessarily, quote-unquote, doctor's orders to be out there playing, people are a little bit more willing to take on these risks in playoffs and big games. So I would not be surprised to see him out on the field if necessary, if they need that depth at wide receiver down the line. It doesn't look like it's going to be this week, but it sounds like he's coming along in his rehab. He just has to get back up to game speed, and once he's showing that speed that he's known for and able to play without significant limitations, I think they're going to have him out there on the sidelines with the rest of the team.
Does a broken fibula, coming back, that's a pretty gruesome injury. Does coming back from that, have you noticed guys, do they lose their speed or their explosion from that?
I think long term, it should not really affect his speed and explosion. The problem is at this point, you have to limit him for a period of time to allow this to heal before you can have him running. So he's not going to be in game shape. Not saying that, Mike Wallace isn't incredibly fast right now, but it's going to take him a while to get back up to that speed and get that endurance back that he's known for having, just because he's been not playing for so long. So that's the real problem. The fibula fracture itself, once that bone heals, it's not really going to hamper his performance all that much. It's just that now he's behind the 8 ball here as far as getting all his strength back and his conditioning that he hadn't had while he was, resting this ankle to let it heal.
All right, this one's interesting to me because obviously Carson Wentz, the ACL, he came back very soon. This guy, Hunter Henry, he's going to be activated, ready to go. Towards ACL, May 22nd. Think about Carson Wentz, did it last year in December, came back to play in September. Towards ACL, May 22nd. He is active this week for the Chargers. So my question is, should we continue to expect that ACL injuries, that these guys are going to get back out there faster and faster? Are you guys, doctors, finding ways and finding methods to accelerate the healing process and the rehab process to get these guys back faster?
So I think that the quick answer is yes and no. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing that's able to accelerate rehab, so athletes are able to do a lot of conditioning in the early phases of rehab where maybe they're not doing a lot of impact loading, but they're on a bike and they're running in pools, things like that, where it's not loading the knee quite as much, but they're still able to get a lot of good conditioning and strengthening in. So that way, once they're able to be cleared to start running, they're starting off at a higher, level of conditioning. So then once they start running, they're sprinting at a fairly high rate of speed. And there's things like that they're able to do to try to expedite the rehab. But some of it's just biology, and you really can't speed all that up all that much. There are ways that they, little supplements they can give that are, not banned substances or anything like that, but supplements to kind of help with speed, healing, and a variety of things they can try to do to speed things up. Sometimes special kinds of, injections you can do as well that can help move things along. But overall, when you do these ACL reconstructions, you need that bone to incorporate into the graft, and it takes a long time for that to happen. We know that when players get back earlier, there's a higher rate of injury. But everything in medicine is a risk-benefit ratio, and sometimes playoffs, the benefits are a little higher now, So they're willing to take on a little added risk, and I don't expect to see Hunter Henry playing at the exact same level as he was before he injured his ACL, especially not at this early stage in his rehab. And he'll probably be in some type of limited role, whether it's limited snap count or maybe limited routes they have him running or whatever they do to try to make sure they protect him. But it is great to see him, accelerating through his rehab so quickly and being able to get out there for the Chargers. But I wouldn't expect him to be at that exact same level. It just takes time for these things to mature, get completely healed to a point where they're able to play at their expected level of performance.
4 months after ACL surgery, he was wearing a knee brace and running sprints at practice. 4 months later, out there sprinting out there. It just seems that we hear these. The Adrian Peterson, I guess, is the one guy. What a freak of nature that guy was to be out doing what he did right after. But I feel like these guys are getting back quicker and quicker, and that's a tribute to guys like you.
Yeah, and these athletes, they're working really, really hard. They put in the time, and they really do a lot to make sure they put themselves in the best place they can to excel with their rehab.
How much is this
and
genetics?
Get out there.
How much is it genetics, like your ability to heal?
I think there's a combination. When I met the Patriots, I realized immediately that when my mom told me I could be anything I wanted to be, I knew I couldn't be the offensive tackle for the Patriots, right? So, it doesn't matter how much time I spend in the weight room. There's some genes there, right? And there's definitely some role in that. There's got to be some type of genetic component that plays a role in why some people just get injured a little bit more in high school and college, and they don't make it to that level. And then a lot of players that make it to that level that, we label quote-unquote injury prone, and they're just not able to really stay in the league all that long. And the guys that are these career athletes that just are able to stay out there, it has to be a little bit of genetics, but also the work they do to do their strengthening and conditioning, because we know a lot of the studies show that risk factors for injuries is fatigue, and if you're in peak performance shape, you're not getting tired. It protects yourself from injuries. So it's a combination of their just incredible work ethic and maybe a little luck from their gene pool as well.
Dr. Kevin McHale, and of course the Eagles getting ready this weekend. Looks like healthy Nick Foles and virtually everybody back ready to go. Today's injury report brought to you by Cape Regional Health System. Dr. Kevin McHale with Penn Orthopedics. The best of both worlds for a healthier life. For an appointment, call 609-463-CAPE or visit caperegional.com/orthopedics. All right, Doc, enjoy the games on this weekend.
All right, definitely won't be rooting for the Bears like we were last week.
That's for sure, man.